Hello and welcome to today's class of History of English Literature. And we will be moving on to the topic of Puritan age during this class. And today what we are going to see is what is Puritanism and who are the Puritans. Now, what is Puritanism? So Puritanism is a religious movement that began in England in the 1500s and 1600s, and it later spread to America. So we will see that how it began in England and what is the reason that it later spread to America in today's class. Now, where did the term Puritans come from? It is not something that they named themselves. It was given to the Protestants, or they were given to these Puritans by other Protestants, because what they tried was to purify the church. They felt that the church in England was not pure enough, and so they tried to purify the church, and hence they were given this term, or they were called Puritans. Now, when did the age of Puritanism begin? So it follows the Reformation age. So we know that during the reign of Queen Elizabeth, we had our English Renaissance, and then after that, or before that, we had the Reformation. That is, what is the Reformation? We have seen in one of our earlier classes. That is, the English Church was Catholic Church, and it later they found problems with the Catholic Church, and they started a church of their own, and they called it Anglican Church. So, and that is the period when the Reformation happened. So it is after the Reformation. So there was one kind of Reformation that happened, and after the Reformation, they again felt that Anglicanism was also not right. They needed something else, and so as a result of that, Puritanism came into being. Now, Puritanism was largely based on the teachings of these two important figures. So one is John Wycliffe, the person we have on the left, and then the John Calvin, the person we have on the right. So these are the two persons whose teachings influenced Puritans. And what did they say, or what did they believe in? So they believed, or they insisted, that the Christians, they should live a life of purity, of simplicity, and of prayer. These are the three virtues that everyone should have. And what were they against? They were against episcopacy. What is episcopacy? Episcopacy is the belief in the power of the Pope. Okay, so we know that the Catholic Church sees the Pope as the head of the institution, and he is directly given that position by God. That is what the Catholic Church believes in. So these Puritans were against that. They were against the power of the Pope. They were also against the rule of bishops. They didn't like the Pope, they didn't like the bishops, they did not like the rituals that were associated with the church, and they were strict disciplinarians. So for them, discipline was really important. And what did they believe in? They believed in adherence to the Bible. So whatever the Bible says, that is what we have to follow. This is what the Puritans believed in. And they were also an independent body of believers with no earthly head. So we know that when you take the case of the Catholic Church has an earthly head, that is the Pope. And even when you take Anglican Church, there is also an earthly head, which is the king or the queen of England. But here, the Puritans believe that there is no need for an earthly head here. We have a head, that is God, that is the only head that we need. We do not need an earthly head. So they were independent, they had no earthly head, the Puritans. And they were also highly critical of Elizabeth's church. So they were critical of the Catholic Church. They were also critical of the Elizabeth Church, that is the Anglican Church, and also the religious settlement that happened, that is the Anglican Church that came into being in England. So Puritans were mainly against Catholic Church and also against the Anglican Church, and what they believed in was in the strict adherence to the Bible. So there were some important events that happened in the history of England where Puritans were really important. So what Queen Elizabeth did was she made John Whitgift, the person we see in the picture, John Whitgift as the Archbishop of Canterbury. And what did the Archbishop do? He tried, or he forced the clergy to accept the Anglican Church. So everybody should be Anglicans. So there is a forceful conversion that is happening there. Everybody should be Anglicans. They should not be Catholics. They should not be Puritans also. And what did they do? Because these Puritans were a radical group, he tried to bring them down. How did he do that? He imprisoned the Puritans. So there were a lot of struggles that the Puritans had to go through, especially when the Archbishop of Canterbury was John Whitgift. And also during the 1600s, the Puritans, they opposed the political and religious policies of the rulers of England during that time. And another important event that happened where the Puritans were involved was the Millenary Petition, which was presented to James I. And in this petition, 1,000 clergymen signed this petition and wanted James I to agree to it. That is, they wanted Puritan practices to be tolerated. So we know that Puritans were tortured a lot. So what they wanted was they had to be tolerated. So we should not be imprisoned anymore, and we should also be able to start a church of their own. That is what they wanted. So this is what the Millenary Petition was. But what happened? Did James I agree to it? No, he refused, and made sure that the life of Puritans was still problematic, or they were further imprisoned. There were a lot of struggles that they had to go through. And what did they do? They had no other way. They had to escape from there. So many Puritans fled to Holland, and from there they went to America. So in the first slide I said that Puritanism began in Britain, but it later moved to America. This is how they moved to America. That is, when the struggles in England were getting out of hand, they tried to escape from there. First they went to Holland, and from Holland they moved on to America. And they traveled in a ship called the Mayflower. So we have a picture of the Mayflower here, and it's a drawing of the Mayflower, okay? And in this ship called the Mayflower, they traveled to America, and these people who traveled were also known as the Pilgrim Fathers. And when they reached America, Puritanism also spread in America. So in today's class, we saw what is Puritanism. That is, it was a movement that began in England in the 1500s and 1600s, and they wanted to purify the church. And the main teachers of Puritanism were John Wycliffe and John Calvin, and they were an independent body of believers. They were against the Catholic Church, they were against the Anglican Church, and their important events which happened during their time was how they were persecuted by the Anglicans, and then the Millenary Petition that they presented to James I, which was refused, and how they fled to America in a ship called Mayflower, and these Puritans came to be known as Pilgrim Fathers. So this is the class for today, and in the next class we will be dealing with the historical background of the age, that is 1625 to 1660. Thank you.